So please join me in welcoming John.
Thanks, Derek. It's really good to be with you all. About Christmas time, I was talking with a young friend. She just finished her psych degree and she was thinking about the next steps. She had a life plan, and so far so good. But there was a deeper question of purpose. And she was coming up against that thing that we all come up against, that life requires a work of becoming, a way of living towards a truly good goal. And often we find we don't have that work in our hands. And she turned to me and she said, John, I'd just be really grateful if you could give me any input right now. Just love some input. And then the tears came. And the tears were about being stuck and about fear of the future and anxiety that it was on her to have the answers. But they were also about a desire for security and the ability to trust, and that her life would be whole. And instinctively I turned to her and I said, mate, you don't need input. You've been inputted into for 5 years. You need rest. I didn't mean that she needed to lie in on the weekend, or that she needed better time management skills and better work-life balance. I was talking about the assurance and the comfort and the strength that comes from learning to abide with the God who hears and responds to us, who comes to us, who is with us. The way of being, the work of becoming, the education, if you like, that she needed was not more input. It wasn't information and success and experience. It was the simple and challenging work of learning how to pray. That lively, adventurous, trusting experience of doing life every moment with God. And I had the honour later in the year of walking with her for a time and seeing that work unfold in her life. And it was beautiful. I've spent all of my adult life in and around universities, studying, researching, teaching, and I now work as a chaplain here in Wellington. And I know about input, and I know how wonderful it can be. But as I think about the compartmentalised lives and the dissociated emotions, about the poorly used, unloved bodies, and the broken relationships, about the acute, ironised loneliness and the silent, chronic anxiety of students and teachers alike at our institutions of higher learning. I believe that the work, the deep work of becoming that we need, the education that we need, is to learn how to pray, how to come into the presence of God. Now, when we think about education, this seems ridiculous, at worst, very poor advice. Because the story we have around education is that I come and I acquire knowledge, I invest my time and my energy, and I accumulate information and skills and experience. And I come away with a knowledge and social capital that I can invest to maximise my graduate employability and realise my earning potential so that I can walk into happiness and so that I can make a difference in the world. This is the story that we tell. It's a story of personally applied information management, if you like. And it assumes a story about being human where it's about the intellect. It's not about what the New Testament calls the cardia, or the gut, the heart, the core of who you are. It's about the mind, it's not about the body. It's about me, it's not about my life with others. It's about networking, investing in friendships. It's not about relationships of openness and trust. If it's about prayer, it's about spiritual techniques for well-being. It's not about a relationship with God and the adventure that entails. It's a dream of self-realized autonomy. And there are rewards for living this way. There's a certain kind of authority, certain kind of trust that's given when you've done the work. There's money. There's an identity that's publicly affirmed. But as I think about my friend and coming alongside her, and I think about her tears, there's a cost to that way of living. There's a cost to going into that story and allowing it to shape your life towards whatever goal. The cost is not just that the dream of maximizing my earnings radically undersells a truly good goal, a vision of what good life should be. And it's not just the irony that as I pursue a dream of self-realized autonomy, I'm actually equipping myself to become a highly effective, highly efficient human resource. It's not just that it gets who we are wrong, that it forgets that we're bodies who are selves, that we're inherently relational, that we are body and spirit. It's that it's an inadequate education for the realities that life throws up in front of us, and it does not draw us towards a truly good goal. That truly good goal is that our life is from and through and for the one who made us. It's a life, an invitation, a goal that we see in the face of Jesus, God who shares our life, who opens up a way for us to have communion with the Father through the Holy Spirit. It's in this goal that we are able to become who we are not yet. It's a way of being in the world that opens the world up to us and opens our lives up to others. All of this is abstract, so let me give you one picture of this education, this way of being. And it's a picture that a friend of mine has given me from her experience. She's kindly allowed me to share it with you this evening. This friend is in her early 20s, and she has tapped deeply into that dream of inputs and outputs. And she also knows the way in which that dream of my potential turns the gift of knowing into a performance and into a way of managing others. And her recent adventures in prayer have been such that she says now, joyfully, she says, I no longer recognize my life. God has made her a lover of God and a lover of others, and it is beautiful. Prayer for her, she tells me, oh, John, it was like leaving an answer phone message. Pick up the phone and you leave a message. There's a connection, just the trace of a presence on the other end. And the assumption that she had was that as long as she was doing her bit, her input, God would keep his side of the bargain. And for understandable reasons, she thought of God as a supplier of goods of transformation. She would do her part of the input, expected the output. But then life was such, and honesty demanded that she had to admit that she got to a point that faith was no longer a skill that she could master, She was running out of inputs. And she came to the point where she said, I don't have what it takes to have faith. About the same time as this important failure, another way of learning opened up for her. She's a dancer, and she'd been learning a new kind of dance. It's a partnered, improvised dance. It's not the kind of dance where you can learn set steps beforehand. If you do, the dance actually breaks down. The connection with your partner breaks, and you collide with each other. Well, this kind of dance required that she relinquish managing the dance floor and instead listen with her whole body to where the lead was and was going. To listen and then allow a space to open up, which actually, she said, was quite vulnerable. It required a great deal of trust. And in that trust, the space was there for the dance to flourish. In this dance, normally, she is not a lead, she's a follower. And she was delighted to discover that the lead in this dance did not demand anything of her, but everything was invitation. And so she was free to respond or not. And so the dance. And this became an embodied metaphor for a new way of thinking about being in the world for her. It wasn't about being active and controlling, it wasn't about being passive and controlled, but it was something in between, and freedom and delight and even a kind of peace came when she allowed that space to open up and extended trust, and then the invitation came. And so now, John, she says, prayer is like this dance. It starts by being prepared to learn. Prayer is something that we learn. That's why the church prays, "Come, Holy Spirit, help us to pray." That's why the disciples say, "Jesus, teach us how to pray." It's something that we learn. And so being prepared to learn, we then still ourselves and we listen with our whole being. And we extend trust, which feels quite vulnerable, even painful maybe. But as we extend trust, we're okay with the space that opens up, space for both partners to move in the dance. And then the invitation comes, this way, this way, this way, this way, yes, 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 here, now. And you find that life has become more like a dance floor. So as we set a kind of idea of education as inputs and outputs aside, and we learn to listen for and to trust God's expert leading, as we learn to follow and allow the space that makes the dance happen to be there, what you find is that this starts to reshape all the other relationships in life. It spills over. And very simply, we stop having to manage others, their perceptions and their expectations, and we're free to love them as they are instead, as also dancers. And it's beautiful. Now, this is just one picture, and there are as many pictures as there are prayers of what this might be like. So don't take my word for it, but also don't let this just be more input, more information. So if you feel a sense of invitation, if you are at a point in life where you go, there's a work of becoming that's needed, wherever you might be in life, however that might be, that you're not yet who you need to be for that situation, then still yourself and listen. and extend trust. Come, Holy Spirit. The psalmist writes, I have stilled and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord both now and forevermore. Thank you.